Good morning, church.
Good morning.
Happy birthday.
Yes. Thank you.
Now, is this for me? You guys want me to walk that already? Oh, you don't look none the wearer to have been around for as long as you have. I would like to begin today really by honoring those pioneers who I met so many years ago when I first entered into LA Third over on 48th and Main. Those individuals who were holding the light at that time. A church that was really on the decline, had lost its pastor due to, who knows, there were just a whole lot of rumors in terms of what had happened. But nevertheless, he was gone, and the church was just dwindling away. But there were some saints that were there. Alicia Pope, who was the board chair at that time, Hilton Rice and Collins Beverly, Robina Bly Williams, who was Robbie's grandmother, Alita Stevens, Bertie Glover's mother, Fanny Hamilton, Anna Haggerty, all of those individuals who were just, they're such loving individuals. Addie Austin, I can see them all, even today. Even as they have transitioned this experience and entered into the next. It was as though they were waiting my arrival, and then they began to leave one by one. I had never had that kind of experience ever. It seems as though every month I was eulogizing one of those great and loving individuals. But that brings us here today. When I retired from this pulpit, we were a church of religious science. You are now a church for spiritual living, following the course of so many other religious science churches. They've all decided to change their name, albeit that I think that they all continue with the teaching. But they call themselves now spiritual centers. And this morning, for a moment, I'd like for us to explore what makes you a spiritual center. You know, we hear it and we just sort of take it for granted that as we enter into this center and so many others, and we have that name, but don't pay it an awful lot of attention. But what is it that makes this congregation and others a spiritual center? And I want to begin by sharing this with you. It's not just because you read the Bible more. That's not what makes anyone spiritual. And some people have that mistakenly, that because now they open up this book and they begin to recite all of these texts, that they are now, for some way or some means, spiritual. But you know, reading the Bible is just like reading any other book. If there is no comprehension in what it is that you are reading, it really does not prosper you. So it's like with our reading, we need to get understanding. And with that, I'm reminded of an instance when Jesus was talking with Peter, and he said to Peter, "Who do you say that I am?" And Peter answered and said unto him, "Thou art the Christ, the Son of the living God." And Jesus said to Peter, "Peter, flesh and blood hath not revealed that to you, but it was my Father that is in heaven that made that revelation come through." And what that implies is that Peter was talking from a deeper place. He was speaking from a more intuitive level. And Jesus appreciated that, and that's why he said, "Upon this rock I will build my church." And I think that what he was saying in that instant is, upon this understanding, that my church will be built. Not based upon all the things that you are hearing outside of yourself. It's not based upon the things that you are reading, but more importantly, the things that you are receiving from that deep place within oneself, where the Spirit of Christ is speaking aloud into the understanding of all of us. And that is what the church is predicated upon. Let's just imagine for a moment what would happen if we understood that the word that we speak is not for the purpose of making things happen, but rather for the purpose of doing something so things can't help but happening. It's not about making something happen, but causing a situation where things have to happen because something has been released in motion. Now, this can only happen when the self is revealed to the self. When the self is revealed to the self. See, we are spiritual beings. And as the scripture reminds us that God is a spirit, and therefore the worship of the spirit must be through a spirit. And how do we worship spiritually unless we understand that we communicate with spirit by our intuitive means? It's not about us making loud proclamations. It's not about someone jumping up and down. It's not about you grabbing all kinds of books and reading them. It's about understanding who you are, where you are, and what is happening through you. And we all get the opportunity to see for ourselves what's happening through us. A lot of us have been a part of not only this experience, but this course of life, where we called ourselves New Thought participants. We've been in this for quite some time. But the difference is made not by the number of years that we've been a part of something like this. It's about our understanding of what it is that's being imparted unto us. And the understanding becomes key when we see ourselves demonstrating at a higher level. There has to be some change that takes place in the course of your life at some time, at some point. See, most New Thought people love to run around and call themselves spiritual because that's just part of the race consciousness in our centers. And that's all it is. But when the self meets the self, when there is a clear understanding, when there is real revelation that is coming through us, when in our quiet times we hear the self speaking to ourselves, giving us guidance, giving us direction, and without fear we move as we are hearing that voice speaking to us loud and clear. We move without fear, but in accordance with faith. Does that sound like you? Does that sound like the way that you operate? You know, your theme this month is the Word made flesh. And I want to go back to a moment before I came to LA Third Church. There was a time after I had completed all of my religious science studies, I graduated from the Institute, completed everything, and I decided to create a study group. It was called Spiritual Innovations. And some of the folk that are sitting here in the room now were part of that group. You know, when Ricky Byers was here during the summer, and she said the first time she came to LA Third, we were at the Inglewood Library, she was a little confused. That was Spiritual Innovations at the Inglewood Library, not LA Third Church. And there was a whole group of us at that time, and I was meeting and I was teaching them every Sunday morning. As a matter of fact, part of that group at that time, Regina King, you've seen her, the Academy Award winner. She was just starting acting school. Her mother was bringing she and her younger sister to our lessons. And we were meeting and I was teaching, and I did that for a while. But, you know, then one day I was reading something that Dr. Holmes had written, and it clicked. And it clicked into my understanding so vividly. And he said, I would rather you be a practitioner of this teaching than the utter every word that has ever been written. See, a lot of us like to pick the book up and read it aloud and say, you know, I wear my badge that I'm a religious scientist, or I'm a New Thought participant, or I'm this, or I'm that, and have no level of definable demonstration. We have labeled ourselves with something. We're in church all the time. Every time the door opens, we're there. But our understanding is limited. We've not absorbed the true teaching of what's being shared. So I was sharing this every Sunday morning, and I had reached a point in my life. I was working for this construction firm. I was the vice president of government finance housing, and really, you know, enjoying my life and having a good time doing that. And I decided one day, I am not going to teach another word of this teaching until I demonstrate it at a much higher level. Not going to say another word because everybody can read the book. Everyone can go to the library and pick up a writing by a New Thought author and read it and pretend that they are practicing it. But I want a viable demonstration within my own life experience. And that was the time that I wanted to create my own business. I no longer wanted to work for someone else. I had reached a point in my unfoldment where I thought, I can do this for myself. Why am I doing this for someone else? Listen, I enjoyed my job, and I enjoyed the people I was working for, and I enjoyed the people I was working with. But I felt that this teaching had put something in me, had motivated me to the place where I felt that I could do more, and I wanted to be more. And I felt that my word represented more. So I said, I'm not going to teach any further. So I disbanded the group. I stopped teaching, and I began to go to Redondo Beach Church every Sunday morning and listen to Dr. Richland, and I was happy doing that. Enjoyed his service. That's where I met Reverend O.C. He was a soloist there. He was still in ministerial school while I was attending there. And I was enjoying that. And then one day, all of a sudden, I was laid off. And as I got laid off, I thought for a moment, I said, I'm going to go out and celebrate. Because this is the start of the unfoldment of the word that I've spoken.
Yes.
Rather than to be fearful of the unknown that was in front of me, I was embracing the truth that I understood.
Yes.
That with God we are a majority. And there's something inherent in this word and in our belief of this word that when we release it in faith, knowing without doubt it's going to cause something to happen.
Yes.
And something did happen. I launched this company. And so this company is moving, and we're getting contracts, and we're moving all along. I bought a new car, bought a new house, enjoying my life still, going to Dr. Richland's church every Sunday morning, listening to the service, leaving that, meeting friends for brunch, just having a grand time. Then one day, my practitioner at that time, J.L. Armstrong, he said to me, I'm going to be speaking at this church over on Main Street on Sunday morning. Why don't you come over and join me? I said, what kind of church is it? He said, it's a religious science church. I said, on Main Street? He said, yeah. I said, I've never heard of one over there. And I thought I knew all the churches. So I said, I'm not doing anything. I just want to go to Redondo Beach that Sunday. I will meet you over there. So I drive up, and I drive in front of the church, and I'm sitting there in my car, and I'm looking around, and I'm thinking to myself, is it safe to leave my car? Imagine that. That's a thought that I'm having in mind. Here I put the material over the spiritual. Is it safe to leave my car here? So I get out of the car, I walk into the church. And the moment I enter into the foyer of the building, I can hear the voice of the Spirit speaking to me so clearly, saying, this is the place that I prepared for you. And I'm looking at this place. But what I'm feeling and what I'm hearing is just so real and it's so powerful. So I didn't say anything. I walked in, and I'm greeted at the door by two people who they stay in my memory forever. Milton Rice and Fanny Hamilton. They were the two ushers that morning. There was never the amount of love have I ever felt by two individuals walking into a sanctuary. These two senior individuals had such smile and such a vibration that they were giving out. And I received that, and I went and I took my seat. And when I sat down in the seat and I'm looking around, the building like it was about to collapse. They had these tile ceiling in the sanctuary, and they had taken these 1x2 pieces of wood and just had nailed them up just to keep the ceilings from collapsing. And so as I sat there, I thought to myself, my first thought was forgiveness, but thinking the thought that I thought about my car being outside. That I needed to experience forgiveness for that thought and to banish that from my mind. And then I looked at it and said, this place needs an awful lot of work. I said, if there's the slightest tremor, I'm working in construction, so of course, you know, I'm attuned to all this stuff that's around me. And my thoughts are that there's the slightest tremor, this stuff is going to come down, and it's going to come down on someone. So my friend Reverend Dale, he spoke that Sunday morning, and after service was over, and I was sitting near the front. Before I left my seat, the gentleman, Milton Rice, who had greeted me at the front door, came over to me, and he said, sir, I don't mean to bother you or interrupt you. I just have a question for you. Are you a minister? And I said, yes. He said, I felt it the moment you walked in the door. He said, I believe you were sent here to give us a message. My very first Sunday, didn't know anyone there except the speaker. Felt that I had been sent there to give them a message. So he said, if you don't mind, I'd like to introduce you to the people around here who make the decisions. So I said, I don't mind. So he took me over and introduced me to Alicia Pope, who was the chair of the board at that time. She was in the back counting money. And she was so happy. She didn't know what to do. She said, you know, I'm supposed to speak next Sunday, but could you please come and speak? Could you please come and speak instead? So I told her that I would. So after I had agreed to do this, I sent out notes to all my friends. I said, you know, all the people who were part of Spiritual Innovations. I said, I'm going to be speaking over here at this church over at 48th and Main. Why don't you come over and be a part of the service? And then tell them the revelation that came to me. Didn't share with them what had been said to me. Just invited them to come in because I wanted the confirmation of the same thing that I had received from someone else. And out of that group that I invited a very dear friend, a young lady who I had met when I first came to the city, and she was the first one that started introducing me to this whole New Thoughts Society in Los Angeles. She was a very gifted clairvoyant. She was also a minister. So I didn't say anything to her. I said, I want you to come and to be a part of the service. So they all came. And after the service, everyone, Ronnie, this is the place you have to be. You're supposed to be at this church. But then my dear friend, Reverend Jane, she came and she said to me, the Spirit told me that you were going to be here at this place. That this is the place that God has prepared for you. I know that you have been pushing against speaking somewhere, but this is where you have been prepared to teach. Now, I could have been like so many of my contemporaries, names not going to be mentioned, that say that my car won't allow me to go to that side. You know, when the church asked me if I would take on this role, and they said to me, the person who called, she said to me, the church is very interested in having you come to be its minister, and I still hadn't shared anything. Said, well, you know, it's going to be between you and Reverend J.L. And when she said that, I chuckled to myself. I said, little does she know that that's the last thing on Reverend J.L.'s mind, is to go over there and be at that church. And it's the first thing on my mind because that is the revelation that I have already received. And I entered in, and the rest is history.
Yes, sir.
Spirit began to provide revelation after revelation after revelation. And we worked so diligently on one thing solely in the beginning. And that was anyone that entered into that space would feel the presence of Spirit. We immediately got started on a major renovation project. And people just came out of the woodworks. And they gave of their time and their energy and their resources. A good friend of mine came and he joined the church. And he was the lead architect for Universal. As a matter of fact, he was the lead architect for the project in Osaka, Japan. He came and he redesigned the entire sanctuary and got vendors of his to provide and donate their time. And we redid that church over. Carrie Elam, who's sitting there in the back, was having sidewalk sales every Saturday. Selling goods. And I mean, we just raised money hand over fist. And these individuals, albeit senior, bless their hearts. If I said we needed, all of a sudden they just dug deep and everything we needed was provided. And what was that other than spirit? Amen. What was that other than those who had been a part of this teaching for so long, allowing themselves to move as they were directed, believing that they would, in fact, receive a reward for their efforts. This was real faith, not something that's fabricated. You know, a lot of us now, we have been a part of this teaching for so long, and these things that we understand it, but we still don't have that level of faith, and that's why our level of demonstration does not rise to our own vision of where it should be. It's one thing to claim belief, it's another thing to experience belief. Yes. You know, I imagine it was somewhere back in 1927 to 1932 that someone heard this word, that there is a powerful good in the universe, and you can use it. Imagine it. A powerful good in the universe. One, that it exists. But secondly, that you can use it. And I would imagine that that word impacted the late Dr. Arthur Twine, just like the word that I heard impacted me. Whether it was at a hearing or a meeting at the Ambassador Theater, or some assembly at the Wilshire Ebell during that period, he was one of the many thorns of people that went out and they heard this man by the name of Ernest Holmes begin to say that there is a powerful good. Not only did he talk about this powerful good, he spoke in terms of how we apply this power in our circumstance and how our application of it began to bless us. And he said in his teaching, it didn't make any difference what your religious persuasion was, because there was only one God. And God does not differentiate between a Catholic or a religious scientist. He has made one people of one blood of himself and has filled all of these individuals with the same power and like abilities. Imagine that. Each of us being filled with the same thing. The thing that separates us from each other is our own willingness to use the gift that we've been given. We've heard, I guess on the second or third Sunday, when Reverend Lisa began to talk about the chronology of all the ministers of the church, from Dr. Twine all the way to Reverend Lisa. This parade of ministers, these individuals that had came forth to be a part of this great congregation. Word that was spoken, and that word became flesh. The Bible said in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was God, and the Word was with God. And by him all things were made, and we beheld his glory. We saw the result of a word that was spoken into the void. And that is a word that is spoken at the start of every experience where there is nothing. There is nothing but an idea in mind. There is nothing but an understanding within oneself. And we take that understanding and we put that understanding in a word, and then we speak it aloud with the expectation that that word is causing something on some level somewhere to cause change. And change begins to unfold. Things begin to happen as the result of that change. It was Walt Whitman who said this: when we can get this discontented and conceited intellect aside long enough, something within us shall speak.
Yes.
Speak to him, thou, for he hears, and the Spirit with the Spirit shall meet. Scripture says we can get ourselves out of the way.
Yes.
We're in the way of ourselves, believe it or not.
Yes.
We're our own barriers to our greater good. And when we can remove those barriers, which is ourself, then change will begin to take place. We live in a spiritual universe. And therefore, the things that are happening are spiritual. It was the Apostle Paul when he was sending a letter to the Hebrews. He said, we understand that the worlds were framed by the Word of God. And therefore, the things that appear are the result of things that are not seen. Your word is not seen when it is spoken in the silence. The idea behind the word is a thought within your own consciousness. But the moment you allow yourself to believe in it and act as though it is, something begins to happen. This man who founded this organization, Arthur Klein, something must have been said in his consciousness that motivated him to start a group in his living room. From the start in the living room to where we are today. I was watching your YouTube presentation and I was listening to Reverend Lisa when she shared with you how we have left 48th and Main and went to the hotel and went over to 11th Avenue and then we came here. All of this, words that were spoken and believed in. We fixed up that building over there. And we were having a great worship experience over there. But a revelation had to take place, and that was not our neighborhood any longer. We were fighting graffiti and vandalism every 5 minutes. And one day I came in and I said to the congregation, I said, God is trying to tell us something. All this constant fighting of graffiti. I said, who in their right mind ever heard of people breaking into a church? What is it they're trying to take out of here? Why would people break into a church? And one didn't understand how they were getting in. Because when we would come back, we would see items missing, but there was no evidence of break-in. So the Spirit said, put a guard out there one night in plain clothes and just see what's happening. So we hired someone just to be out there and to watch the building and see what was going on. Well, these people in the neighborhood had brought their young children, and there was a small little window on the front of the building where obviously the latch on that window was broke. They would push open the window, put a child in through the window, he'd come around and open the door, and here they go. That's how they were robbing us. So I said, here's what we're going to do, church. Now that we have completed this building, we fixed it up, it's very nice. This is no longer our neighborhood. But this church will work for other traditional forms of worship. So let's just know that there is another congregation that wants to lease our property. And what we'll do is that we're going to take the proceeds of that lease and subsidize wherever we're going to go. So what happened? Church came along right away. They leased our property. We moved over to the hotel across the street from USA. And there we were having service. And we stayed there having service until I said, well, this is not working well because we were in the lower level and we didn't have elevator service to that level, but we had a senior congregation. So one Sunday morning, I was always the first one in church. After many years ago, always be the first one there. I was sitting there and I was watching Girl Shepherd trying to come down those stairs. And it just hurt me to my heart watching her. She wanted to be at service, but she had difficulty dealing with those stairs. And so I went into meditation. I said, we want to speak a word and know that there's another place. I said, I'm interested in moving in the Leimert Park area. I feel Leimert Park. That is the artist community. It works well with our philosophy. I just know that there's a place in Leimert Park, and I'm going to speak that word. But even before that, another word that was spoken when I first came to the church, and I want to share you the evidence of that word, how it continues to linger even to today. When I came to the church, they had this musician there. Very dedicated man. Extremely dedicated. When I would arrive at church, he and his wife would be sitting out in their car waiting for me to unlock the door. And he was 90 if he was a day. And he'd be sitting there, and they would have driven from Glendale. He had been with the church for a long time. This man had impeccable credits. His musical credits date back to the silent movies. And he had played just about for every major singer that you want to identify. I mean, his credits were just absolutely great. Just a lovely, lovely individual. But the music just did not move me. And you know, after imagine coming out, first of all, coming out of the Church of God in Christ, imagine the kind of music that they had. And then coming into New Thought. And love music, always been a participant of it. All the years I was at Founders, I sang in the choir. So I said, I'm going to go into prayer, I'm going to speak a word for a great musician who's going to come to our congregation, someone who is going to give us so much inspirational music. And I was talking with another friend, a dear practitioner friend, Jean Alexander, one day, and I said, Jean, I want you to be in agreement with me on a word that I'm speaking on behalf of our congregation, that we'll have a musician that will be led and guided to us, someone whose music will be so inspirational. She said, Dr. Ronnie, I know somebody. I said, you do? She said, yes, this is a young man named Ron Bishop. There's a word right there. The word became flesh. So she gave me Ron's number. I called Ron. He came over and he auditioned. The moment he hit the keys, I knew he had to have it. So after he finished his audition, we were talking. I asked him, what was his salary requirement? He told me what his salary requirements were, and I said, listen, they can barely give me an offer. I said, but I need some inspiration in order for me to do what I need to do. So I went to our board, and I said, church, here's what I'd like to propose. Don't pay me. Pay the musician. You know, music in the church will grow a church. And if you would just take a moment and just reflect on all the other New Thought churches everywhere that once upon a time had a great heyday, they had wonderful music. Look at them today versus look at this place today. Compare the music that you have in this place right now to the quality of the music that is every place else. And it's not to put a dispersion on those other places because they're doing the best they can. With the exception of the Agape Church. No other church has this level, this quality, this kind of music. That's the result of another word that was made flesh, a word spoken in love, a word believed in, and a word that went with, I will sacrifice you paying me, because there was belief that I will get mine as the church begins to grow and expand. So we had Ron Bishop. So another day, I was part of this group called Port Economic Development Corporation, and we were a nonprofit that was created by Diane Watson, and we were creating affordable housing in this community. And Tyree Hunter was also a member of that board. And Tyree, of course, was a member of Guidance at that time. The two of us, one day, we were standing out here on the corner, because we were having our meetings over here in the building on the corner of 11th Avenue and Merck Boulevard. So we had just concluded a meeting. We were standing there on the corner, and we were talking after the meeting. And as we were talking, I said to Tyree, that building over there has a for lease sign on it. And she turned around and she said, well, you're right. I said, let me go get this information. So I got the information, contacted the owner. After I listened to his sad story, and I told him I didn't believe any of it, we negotiated a deal. And there we were, behind the pizza place across the street, right there on 11th Avenue. Ron was in there playing such great music. We were having such wonderful church service, just enjoying ourselves. And during this time, we were building our building fund. We were working hard to build our building fund. You know why? Because we knew that that was not a permanent place. It was just a step. See, when you understand that you are not limited, you don't limit yourself. And that was something that had never entered into my understanding, that we would be limited. So we continued to build. We had all our fundraising, and we just continued to thrive. And then we started scouring this community, looking for places. And several places that came up, and we inquired, and we were unable to get them. One day, another good friend of mine, a practitioner who was a member of Agape, called me, and he said, there's a building for sale in Leimert. And I said, impossible. I looked at everything over here. He said, there is no for sale sign out on the building. I said, really? He said, yeah. So he gave me the address. I came by and I saw it. I got the board together and said, I want you all to come by and take a look at this building over here. And we looked at it. I said, okay. He made an offer. The owner accepted our offer. He accepted the offer, and we closed escrow in 20 days. We closed escrow so quickly, he was not prepared yet to move back. A word spoken, made manifest. A word, collective energy. People coming together, understanding where we were, understanding the power that is inherently ours, without fear, speaking that word into a spiritual place of understanding. Didn't know if we were going to be able to get along. We didn't have financials. We did have some money, and we had sufficient money to put half of what they were asking for this building down on. And then we got into the building, and I brought my ministerial students at that time. They were no longer practitioner students. They had graduated. And we came in here one night, and I said, we're going to just come in, we're going to close the doors, and we're just going to have a moment of meditation in this place. We're going to release the power of spirit in this building. Because now we need funds to remodel the building. You know, this building was originally built to be a place where they did hair. And the owner who we bought it from was making wigs and hair color and all that other kind of stuff in here. And then, of course, there was a bunch of tile that filled the place that was original, so it was all asbestos laden. So there were all these challenges. The electrical was not to standard. The restrooms had a great deal of work that needed to be done to them. But we were looking beyond all of that. We were seeing this, not what was existing. We were making a judgment not according to an appearance, but making a judgment from a place of righteousness, a place of understanding. making a judgment from our real belief that we were able to do this because we were one with Spirit. Once again, not just talking about God, but operating with God. And demonstrating what happens when one operates in concert with Spirit. Pushing fear out of the way, embracing greater faith, and moving forward without doubt. Didn't know where we were going to get the funds from to do this, but we came in and we had this wonderful time of prayer training. The membership came in, and they saw the place. And upon them seeing the place, the buckets just began to overflow. Overflow. We still did not have a congregation the size of so many other churches. Didn't either. We had the congregation of Spirit.
That's right.
That's all we needed.
That's right.
All we needed was God with ourselves, working in concert together, believing by faith that we can get it done. And we got it done. And we moved in. For the last few months, I've heard that so many of the congregants now of this church don't come to church. They're intimidated by coming through that parking lot, seeing all those folk out there. Even though we claim that they're harmless, so much is happening today, people that we claim are harmless. And I imagine that especially seniors, women who are by themselves walking through that space, they're intimidated. But there's no need to be intimidated when you have the power of Spirit.
Amen.
There's no need for you to feel that you are locked in this place. This can just be a stepping stone if that's how you see it. You either lock yourself or you believe that Spirit will pave the way for you to go to another place. See, we limit ourselves, but a God that is limitless.
Yes.
And the moment we begin to bring our belief in accordance with the thing that we are saying, we'll move.
Yes. Amen.
As I so often say to you, there is nothing in front of you but opportunity. Albeit unseen, it is there. You are to take the formless and create form out of it. But in order for you to do that, you have to believe it's possible. One, you have to understand that you are a spiritual being and you are dealing in a spiritual universe. And that there is something that is attending to you. Always in everything that you do. On your job, in your home, in your church, with your family, it makes no difference because God is not limited. In every place that you apply, something happens. That should be our expectation. That something it unfolds in the most marvelous of ways. Why? Because love, at the end of the day, is governing it all. We are the instrument that Spirit is using. So with that, that's the walk from our past to our present. The present and the future is what you all decide to do with it. Peace and blessings to you this morning.